So, how many minutes do I have? Okay, so I'm also going to talk about the share sector, but dealing specifically with this question about an intervention that we have implemented, and the project is still going on. And for this presentation, we want to ask whether one matter was talking about basically it's about how the share sector can be improved so that it can support the livelihoods of those who participate in it, and in this case, particularly women. And normally, because the share production is seasonal, it happens mainly within a certain number of months. And with these kinds of production, you also have huge price differentials between the time that it's available and then when the season goes on. And she talked about June, July, or certain months of the year when there is food insecurity. And therefore, we want to see if the structure of the production system, whether we can take advantage of it and implement some interventions to help the producers. So basically, the motivation for this, I think a lot has been said by Martha already, but we know that in Ghana, those of you who know Ghana, there is a large divide when you look at the North and South in terms of poverty. And therefore, an important question is how we can intervene to make sure that we reduce the poverty gap between the North and the South. And more so also for women, particularly in the North, there are this socio-cultural norms and the patriarchal system that tends to limit their access to resources, which means that if you're developing an intervention, you need to think about how it will be gender inclusive. And our argument in this paper is that the share sector provides an opportunity to bridge the gap there. Because, I mean, most of the activities in this value chain are done by women, and I don't need to go through that again. The picking to the processing and the marketing activities are done by women. However, there is very high, variability in prices. And therefore, those who, if you look at this, you see that the share production is seasonal, and like Martha was saying, you would see, this is from survey data, you see that the peak is around here, June, from May to July, that's when it peaks. But you also have this variability in prices from the beginning of the season to the end of the season, and you would see here that prices can go up to about 75% differential between the beginning of the season and the end, which is just about a few months different. So this provides, if you like, an opportunity to take advantage of these temporal arbitrage opportunities. But you can do that if you can store the kernels, right? But immediately after production, if you don't have assets and other opportunities because that's also the season when you need food, right? So how do you store when you have to sell to make money in order to take care of your expenses? So for this reason, most of the women or the producers are not able to take advantage of these opportunities to store and sell later. Why is this? I mean, in the literature, there are a number of reasons for people not being able to take advantage of these arbitrage opportunities, but the literature talks more about grain markets, right? There's a popular argument in grain markets in the literature, particularly when you look at studies in East Africa, focusing on maize in particular. If you have no storage technology, then if you produce, you have to sell. Otherwise, you cannot take advantage of the opportunity. The other issue that has to do with liquidity constraints. I mean, if you need cash, then you have to sell immediately to be able to have some money to spend. Another reason may be just the high cost of transactions, access to markets, right? That could also limit your ability to take advantage of the price differentials. A fourth reason is just behavioral. People are impatient. They want money now, so it's a behavioral issue. So the question is, which of these motivations or which of these factors play out here? And our argument in this paper is that for the share sector in northern Ghana, the main constraint would be one of liquidity and cash constraint. We do not think storage is a big issue here, but mainly we are focusing here on the problem of liquidity and cash constraint. So basically, our contribution in this paper is that we of course, we provide some evidence beyond the grain markets. If you look at the literature, most of it has to do with maize in particular, or grain markets in terms of temporal arbitrage, and most of it is in East Africa. The other thing is that we elicited in this study why they behave the way they do. Instead of just inferring from the data, we also ask directly. And we provide an intervention where we provide credit during the lean season to see how the producers behave. And another thing which, because of time, I will not be able to share here, is also that we vary our intervention to be able to see the sustainability of the credit system if it were to be scaled up, right? So we have three main specific questions. The first one basically is whether relaxing the credit constraint, which I mentioned that could be one of the reasons why they do not take advantage of this opportunity, whether it then creates, if we intervene in the credit market, would it cause the women or the producers to store for a longer time? And then also, what are the broad welfare impacts of this? And I may not be able to share each of these in this presentation because of time, but I'll touch on mainly the first one, right? Our research design, so we are using a mixed methods approach, although for now I'll be presenting mainly on the quantitative data because we will be going to the field in January to do some more qualitative work, which Martha is also involved in. So it's an RCT, it's a randomized control experiment, and we work with village savings and loans associations where we provide, so the credit, the way we provide the credit is that we do that through a forward sales contract, and we vary the contract, either a verbal or a written contract. And the lean season credit averages around $33 US, and this is pegged to baseline what do you call it, kernel production, right? At baseline, how much credit, because you're going to pay back using kernel. So we use the variation is with the baseline credit value of kernels that you produce at baseline. So we work in 135 communities and 13 districts across 4 regions. And we sample about 20 village savings and loan association members per village. So, and so this is our experiment. It's a total of 2,715, producers, and that into 2 treatments. So we have a treatment, those who get the credit and contract treatment, and the control. But as I mentioned, the variation here, that the treatment, you have a verbal contract or a written contract. So this is a basic structure of our experiment. So yeah, it started in 2021. We did some reconnaissance, and then our baseline in March 2022. Then we had an intervention. We went to the field to see how things were working, to do some, interact with the group, to speak to them about how the intervention was going. And then we had, I'll call it now a kind of midline, because we are planning to do another survey next year, aside the qualitative. So this is ongoing. Well, there were some challenges as RCTs normally would present in the field. The issue about experimental fidelity. So we work with two main implementing partners. And what happened was that, well, if you look at it, about 58% of the assignments adhered to the treatment rules. Here, when I say treatment rules, I mean that receiving the credit, but also receiving the right amount of credit that they were supposed to receive, right? 20% of the individuals got less than what they were supposed to receive. So there was some cheating going on there. And then about 6% got a little more than what they were supposed to receive. And then 10% of them were supposed to get credit, but they got nothing, right? And you can think about the last one more as some kind of contamination. People in the control group who were not supposed to get the credit, but got something else, about 6%. Attrition was not an issue. I mean, we can treat it as ignorable, just about 0.7% attrition rate, about 20 of the sample. So we do not deal with attrition issues in our estimations. So for this, we just use a simple Ancover regression model. And the first one is just an intention to treat effect. So we use the original assignment to treatment, right, rather than the observed treatment itself. And so we have the verbal treatment and then the written, or you can also call it formal and informal credit treatment. And then we control for baseline values of the outcome, and then some controls. In this presentation, mainly just district fixed effects. But of course, because of what I showed, that some level of infidelity, what we also do is that we present an instrumental variables approach where we instrument for the assignment to treatment using we instrument for actual treatment using the assignment to treatment. All right. So the first stage regressions would just be the actual treatments, which we instrument by those assignments, right? Because of time, let me just move on to some results. So we said women because there were about 9 men in the sample. We were also part of the study, but these are mainly secretaries to the Village Savings and Loan Association members who also participated, so largely women. These are some baseline characteristics. So these communities have a population of roughly 1,300 on average. They vary quite a bit. And the market, only about 17% of them have a permanent market, so largely rural communities. Well, they have some experience with previous pre-financing or credit arrangements. So we are not the first to do. There are some arrangements like that in these communities. And most of the women producing kernels, some are also producing butter. The age of these women average around 44 years. I think Martha talked about the fact that most of them are uneducated. Literacy rate is just about 9%. Well, you mentioned about what do they do. A lot of them, if you ask them what are their main job, is farming, right? Because I mean, kernel, they also do that, but it's seasonal. So farming is an important element for them. Let me just let me go to the results because of time. Let me skip these descriptives and well, of course, these are VLSA members, so they had some had some credit, right? So some have experience with credit already. This is just showing seasonal input security, which is a problem that Martha also talked about, that you see that food insecurity peaks around the times when they are also harvesting. Why do they not store for a long time? Well, the most important reason is that they need cash, right? They need cash. There are other reasons, but we argue that storage is not the most important problem here, right? No, what did I? And those who store, the main reason that they store is for better prices, of course, as you would expect. Now, what did they use the credit for? Because remember that this intervention did not tie, you give them credit, you don't tell them what to use it for, because we want to see their behavior, how they'll behave, right? Our hypothesis initially is that since that is the period when they need food and they'll use more of the money for food, right? But it tended out not to be so. The majority of them said that they used the credit to purchase kernel, because around the time also kernel was cheap, right? So they were investing basically rather than using it for consumption. Yes, some use it for food, but it's not the main thing. So that was contrary to what we expected. So let me just show you some results. Here we see that our intervention increased inventory. So at the time, when you look at the inventory, that's storage of kernels, those who got treatment, the verbal treatment, were storing, if you look at it, it's about between more than 40% more kernels, right, compared to the control group. You will see that here. We also see, interestingly, I mean, of course, we are still trying to dig into this and understand how come those who got the verbal treatment were storing more than those who got the written, treatment, right? And then, but when it comes to the duration of storage, we do not, I mean, of course, we see an impact just about 1 week for the intention to treat effect, but that goes up a bit to about 1.3 for the IV, which is an increase of around 9 to 10% if you compare that to the control group. So it's not a large effect as we expected, but it still makes a difference, because when you look at effect on prices, there's a significant increase in prices, but also not as large, just about 5 to 6% increase in price. I mean, if you're storing for just about a week longer, you get about that kind of effect. We see also an impact on revenues, but mainly for those who receive the verbal treatment, right? Those who, I mean, the impact for those who receive the written is imprecise. The standard errors are quite large relative to the point estimates. But what I showed you earlier was when you just look at revenues of the entire production, kernel, butter, and everything, right? But once you disaggregate that, you will see that most of the effect is coming from butter, the butter revenues, rather than the kernel, right? And when we spoke to them, and we will get more insight from the qualitative, basically those who use the credit to buy the kernels, then processed it later into butter. So you see that the effect is coming more from the butter than the kernel storage. We tried to look at some heterogeneity analysis, but that's still ongoing. One reason for doing this, because we saw that the implementers behaved differently. So we wanted to see if the impact differed by implementer. And here we see some difference. Let me just conclude with some implications. Like I said, this is work still ongoing. We are still going to do some qualitative work, and also some a third round of survey to see some more medium-term impacts. But for now, some implications. It seems that opportunities exist for private capital in the share sector. What I mean there is that it seems that if you invest in terms of contract arrangements through credits. People are willing to take this up, and that creates some opportunity. But whether or not the women will benefit if you scale this up compared to the companies themselves who do this is another issue that we have to look at. And of course, VLSAs can be a model that can be used in this kind of credit arrangements. We put this as an implication because we thought that the infidelity that we experience if we use digital means, let's say you send the credit to the women using mobile money or something, it would have worked better. And yet the women, when we ask them, well, at end, like during the midline, we ask them, if we want to send you this credit next time, we want to send it through your mobile phones. Is it something that you would like? Only 15% of them said yes. Most of them said, no, we don't want a mobile money credit. We want to receive the money cash. There are reasons for that. There's no time to go into that, but there are reasons for that, right? And I think Martha also mentioned this, that, I mean, there needs to be more concerted effort from the policy angle to be able to make sure that this share sector derives more benefits for the women. Yeah, thank you. I'll stop here.